From Juneau, there remains 80 miles to go before we leave the protection of the inside passage. Here we provision and refuel in preparation for crossing the Gulf of Alaska, the most exposed portion of our journey to Prince William Sound. We stop overnight at Swanson Harbor at Hubbard Island. When raising the anchor, we pick up a large, irresponsibly abandoned steel cable. It takes 30 minutes of wrestling to clear it from the anchor. Doing so requires good hardware and a windlass with a capstan.
One in Lituya Bay was a lot easier than this. I picked up an old anchor in Lituya Bay. A huge anchor.
We encounter blustery conditions en route to Elfin Cove, where we plan to wait for the right weather window before heading out into the open waters of the Gulf. Elfin Cove is a pleasant place with just 20 year-round residents, a number which increases to 200 during the summer. It has a post office, general store, small restaurant, and at least 5 lodges catering to fish charters. No ferry calls here, so access is by boat or float plane. Pilots guiding cruise ships to and from Juneau embark and disembark from here. When we arrive around midday, the dock is almost empty. It appears new, and this is later confirmed. The outer harbor is very exposed and untenable during the winter, so the original dock had taken a beating. Annual rainfall is around 100 inches, with a similar amount of snow, so trees and moss grow wherever they can. Boardwalks link the rambling buildings. Goat's beard grows alongside one of the elves, resting on his inflatable mattress in Elfin Cove. The business of the town is fishing. Towards the end of the afternoon, the docks fill with boats returning from a day out in the open ocean. The cleaning tables are busy, processing the day's catch, mostly salmon and halibut. The following morning, activity on the dock starts early, with float planes and charter boats getting underway. Float planes bring new arrivals and take departing passengers, along with supplies, mail, and Amazon packages.
What's that?
No sooner does one plane leave than another arrives. Engines are turned off well away from the dock. As the plane glides alongside, the pilot jumps out and ties up. Many planes like this one are de Havilland Beavers, which ceased production in 1967. So all of these planes are at the very least 50 years old.
Actually, I'm having Chinese for lunch, Chinese for dinner.
They are wonderfully simple, as evidenced by this rudder pulley system. We spot the pilot boat returning to harbour, so we check with the coxswain, who advises we wait for the tide to turn, to avoid having to deal with wind against current. We are underway by mid-morning. The defining point at which we leave protected waters for the open Gulf is Cape Spencer Lighthouse. Ahead of us lie 400 nautical miles before we reach our destination of Prince William Sound. Our first stop, 40 miles up the coast, is Lituya Bay. It is best known for the mega tsunami which in 1958 swept the length of the bay, stripping the shoreline to bare rock, as can be seen in this photo. Full details are described in a separate video. Range markers show the correct course through the tricky 50-yard wide entrance, in which many people have lost their lives. Navigation through this channel must only be attempted at or close to slack water. To starboard lie Seal and then Cormorant rocks. To port, La Chaussee Spit divides the bay from the Gulf. Swells continue for some distance inside the entrance. Ahead lies Cenotaph Island. The tsunami passed over its lowest point. The southern end of Cenotaph is home to flocks of wheeling kittiwakes. After 59 years, the size and types of trees still clearly show the level of the 1958 flood. The following day we tour the bay in the tender. This seemingly black rock is actually dirt-covered Cascade Glacier. These brown hills are Crillon Glacier. The southern shore of the bay is very rugged. We revisit the kittiwakes. They nest in close proximity to one another. We return to Venture in time for a hot meal prepared by Christine and Chris. Later that evening, the clouds and rain dissipate to reveal the magnificent mountains at the head of the bay. The highest, Mount Crillon, carries a wisp of cloud. The following morning we exit the bay without incident and continue our journey north. The conical hills, known as the Paps, mark the entrance. At least today we are able to see the misty outlines of the coastal range, which parallels the coast for 400 miles. Venture rides the powerful ocean swells. We enter Yakutat Bay and the small town of the same name. Facilities are limited for pleasure boats. Annual rainfall here is between 85 and 130 inches, and snow may fall 9 months out of the year. There is one taxi. We have to wait here for the weather, and we decide to make a return visit to Hubbard Glacier. 30 miles up the inlet, which terminates in Disenchantment Bay, so named in 1791 by Spanish explorer Alejandro Malaspina, when he turned the corner of Yakutat Bay and saw the forbidding face of the Hubbard Glacier instead of the hoped-for Northwest Passage. The Hubbard is the largest tidewater glacier in North America. It is 76 miles long and 6 miles wide at its face, which is 300 feet high. It is one of the very few to be bucking the majority by advancing rather than retreating. It threatens to close off the mouth of the Russell Fjord, which it did briefly in 1986. The arrow marks the choke point. It is shown in more detail on this chart and in this photo. We depart as the tide begins to flood, but leave it almost too late. Finding ourselves having to negotiate some of the densest ice we have ever encountered. Finally, the pack begins to open up as we spot an approaching cruise ship on the horizon. We move closer inshore to keep out of her way. She calls us on the radio to confirm our intentions. Once back in the open ocean, the seas calm down, as had been forecast. We head direct for Prince William Sound. Along the way, we pass close to the major landmark of Cape St. Elias at the tip of Kayak Island, silhouetted against the setting sun.